50th episode! Welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. I'm going to go ahead and do it. My name is Sean, and this is my hombre.
Fitz. Well, welcome. Well, this is a special one, apparently. Lots of things happened, and we did podcasting now for over a year or a year. I'm not 100% sure.
Over a year. I think we're at like 14 months now.
Ooh, we're professionals. We got the double digits in the Spotify money rolling in, you know? So the passive money.
Yeah. I mean, a lot's changed, man, in a year and a half. I mean, so yeah, we're sitting around almost 200 followers amongst the platforms. I think our total plays on Spotify last time I checked, just on there, I think is something like 7 or 8 grand, some large number, which I never thought we would have ever gotten anywhere near to. And so we're getting followers all the time. We're getting people reaching out to be guests now. I mean, I think things are really picked up. I mean, we've really hit that kind of 14-month point that by now a lot of people have given up, I think. So I think now we're starting to see those rewards, man. But yeah, congrats, dude. Congrats.
Yeah, first off, like most people stop up after episode 3 to 5. So that is like where most people just stop doing it because they realize, oh, we have to edit it and we have to have this, we have to have that. And then it's like, you know, kind of demotivating because like podcasting and just video production in general, there's a lot of moving parts, especially when you work with another person. And where aren't we slacking the last episode, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of slowed down on this end. I think the last few weeks, we've had some episodes kind of just there that we could use. So I think we've kind of been using those, and you know, I think that's the biggest takeaway. If like for anyone that's starting a podcast, is like, you know, you have to be squishy, right? Like there's no way you're gonna hit the same time every day, every week for year after year. Like so, you have to kind of have these squishy moments, right, where we can kind of be a little lazy or a little too busy with something else.
Yeah, also life is happening for everybody, and it's like about the long-term game, and that's what I think is nowadays like highly undervalued because we want to do like that, you know, it's the Instagram Reels thing. If you post Reels on Instagram, YouTube, whatever, it's easy to get a couple thousand views, but it's really hard to actually grind it out and make the long form really good or like good that it's like getting recommended. But everybody wants instant rewards, and that is not what it's about because we started that podcast actually for like, hey, I'm Fitz, I want to learn from master business mind Sean, you know, and we are usually meeting up at a coffee shop and just like, let's have a chat, you know. That was the whole inspiration besides it, you know, and I think a lot of good things came from it. You have some good things on your mind that you could refer to?
Yeah. So here in a second, I think we can go a little bit down memory lane on a couple of places. But yeah, I think, you know, some of the highlights I think for the podcast has been for me, and what I kind of tell a lot of other creatives is it just helps me talk about stuff. The more talking we've done, the better we've gotten at talking, right? I mean, we've logged now that this is episode 50, at least 50 hours of talking now about stuff.
Way more.
So, you know, and so we're probably more like 70 or 80 hours with this podcast. So I think that's been kind of the highlight for me is some of the things I've said on this podcast now, I've said in client meetings, I've said with friends and things, because I think it's helped me solidify my thoughts and stuff. Yeah. Hopefully you felt that too.
Yeah, on that note, I must say, you know, like numbers are always a big thing and people are getting hung up on them. And not everything is measurable, you know. If you have a guest on and you deepen a connection, you're more likely to be hired. It's more likely you stay friends with somebody. It's more likely, you know, that they think about you, they check out your stuff, they support your stuff. And if they do just one share, it means the world and can change the world in a way. I hope that makes sense because, like, people underestimate everything. They're just like, okay, it didn't get 1,000 views, didn't get 100 views, didn't get whatever, you know. They put a judgment on it, and they just completely ignore the people who showed up. Because, like, all the people who showed up, they actually matter, and they actually impact everyone's life, you know. Like, if somebody just, oh yeah, I learned this, you know, and they make a completely different direction in their life or go a different path down just because, like, oh, I see this now in a different way, you know, or I learned something, or that was like, you know, game changing.
I think that's some of my best, my favorite moments too. Is when you see it kind of, inspiring other people and helping other people. I think a couple of our guests that we've had podcasts with, it was their first podcast, and now they're off podcasting. So we helped at least make them not feel so nervous. And I think a lot of people they look at podcasts, and I think they have a hard time seeing like, how am I going to get value from this, right? Like if I
Money
make a
is
podcast,
like the thing they say,
how am I gonna? Yeah, I'm not gonna get like how am I gonna? I'm not gonna be Mr. Beast. I'm not gonna be Joe Rogan. And then and then they look at how much you need to monetize, and it's a lot. It's quite a bit when you start at zero to get to that monetization level on YouTube. It's like a million miles away. So I think a lot of people, they get up to that starting line and they just kind of ask themselves like, why would I do this? I don't really see the value. And I've talked to a couple other people, and I think just us having the podcast, I've actually seen their opinion change, where they've actually been like, you know what, when you first started that podcast, I really don't know why you did it. I didn't really understand it. I didn't get it. And I didn't really see how it would benefit you. But then now that we're here at episode 50, I have people kind of saying like, you know what, I actually see the good in that. I actually see the value of what you're doing. Like you are building that fan club over the years, and it's going to take some time, but you already have kind of a following now behind you because of it. So I think it's a thing that it's good to have someone like you. I think that's where like your value comes in really well, because you're really good at being like, don't worry about the value now, don't worry about the value later, just do it, just put it out there. And if you put it out there, everything will start to work out the more you put out there. So I think that's been a good lesson for me to learn is, we plan some of these podcasts, this one included that, my first plan is always this big, crazy, audacious, awesome, amazing plan. And then, I think this podcast has taught me to, sometimes when you can do that plan, do it. But, sometimes just recording the dang episode is better than it being a perfect episode. So sometimes just give up the plan, hit record, and just push forward.
That is a big one, because like I feel like sometimes, when life gets tough and, it can get you down, like let's say you have a lot of things going on and you're just like, okay, if I'm going to make this one painting, it has to be a real good banger. Otherwise, it's not worth anything. And then you stop practicing and you maybe lose completely like the passion for it, and you stop, just because life got bad. It's like the same with people who go to the gym. They get sometimes an accident and they have to recover. They cannot work out. And then they're just like, okay, they're completely out of it just because of one little thing. But if they would have done the like, okay, let's just do it anyways, even if it's just a la-di-da thing, just to keep the habit going. That is like for me the biggest takeaway. It's all about like momentum, and it's like being hyper aware about like, okay, we're slacking. Now we really need to do whatever it takes just to keep on doing and trying to get back into that momentum, because it's like a wave that is going on, and you have to build that wave up. Because in the beginning it will not do anything, but in the end, when the wave gets really big and it impacts a lot of people, then magical things are happening.
Oh, 100%. I think you're 100% on it, because people want to tie themselves to something that seems like it's unbeatable, right? Like if there's no stopping us, then people want to be attached to this. But at the beginning, it's hard because people don't see that momentum yet, and even you don't see that momentum. I know when we started this podcast, it was hard for me some of those first episodes to even come and record it, because I was like, I don't see the momentum, and I don't know when the momentum's going to begin, right? I have a past, and this tends to happen with a lot of people, where if you have like successful online projects, you tend to have more successful online projects because you keep telling your audience, hey, I have something new, and then they jump over, and it just keeps expanding that way. But for us that haven't really ever done a great job on any of our online projects, it can be definitely a very big obstacle, I think, to start something like a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, I did that art project and I only got 5 likes ever for it, or I did that video thing only ever. So you get to this point where you're like, why would I start something else? Because the internet's not really asking for it. So it is. I think it's in those, like you said, those first 4 to 5 episodes. I think that's what's happening, right? Is you think you're gonna put out that first episode, and you're like, all right, let's see if we can get 1K, right? I'm gonna keep it low, 1K likes, and you're like, oh, I got 0 likes and 3 views. So
you bring up a good point there, though. Like let's go back memory lane and be like, when we started out the podcast, you were not really actively posting anything, and here's me, the drunken goose, running around doing a little bit of everything, let's figure this out, and being a lot of ADHD, a lot of about like, let's push stuff, But look at it. You produced more content now in a year than you ever have, I think, like video-wise.
At least video-wise, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think that's important, right? Is to sometimes you have to be the one that jumps around and does stuff. You have to be the one to push someone to do something. So I think you did that pretty well at the beginning. I could have my weird regards of like, maybe we could have planned things better. Maybe things could have been more solid and not as time wasty as they were. But it
The
was
list
good
is
to
always
have you
long.
be. But it's good that you were like, let's do it though. Let's just do this, and and that's kind of is one benefit you do have at the beginning that I think anyone that is popular would love to have is the fact that like when nobody's watching, then you can do anything, right? Like if we don't have a big viewership that we're going to lose, then we can take risks. We can have a podcast that we think we're live streaming, and then by the end we see that we haven't been streaming at all. We can have those types of podcasts where neither of us have done our homework and we don't come in at all with what we were supposed to come up with. We're like, let's just wing it. Let's do it. Because that's the kind of benefits of not having a huge audience. I've actually thought it's kind of funny and dorky, but the last month or two we've had a couple unsubscribes, and I've actually been ecstatic about it because I'm like, if we're getting unsubscribes, that means we have subscribes. That means we actually have an audience, a big enough audience to make some people unhappy. We've actually hit that point. But, in those first, 30 episodes, we don't have an audience. Like, nobody cares. So just take we could do the podcast in the nude. Like, it's whatever. We have 20 episodes. Like, nobody cares.
Yeah, I think, what was Gary Vaynerchuk's thing? He had, 300 or 500 episodes with no followers, and then he blew up to the new conglomerate that he is. And if you think about the number to generate something for 500 episodes or 400, and then it looks like you came out of nowhere, and, people, they don't look at your history, all the little things, they matter. Like the things that you figure out how to systemize something, how to make something more efficient. You learn a bunch of little things that don't have really an impact right now. But when you start that one thing that really is popping off, you learn so many little things that you hit this new thing with so much power that everybody's like, whoa, he just started a new show, or he just did this new thing, he did this new art piece, and it's magnificent, but nobody sees all the tiny increments that played into that, you know what I mean? So it's I would not even care about all the things that are going on right now, because it is near impossible to immediately oh, I hit a gold mine, and I'm viral, I'm big, I make the money, and we're Gucci, Ain't happening, or it could happen, but unlikely, Yeah,
and I think it's exactly you can't do it for the money. You have to have some love for the game, I think, to do what we're doing. Because, like you said, we had talked about the stuff we're talking about on this podcast. We had talked about years ahead of the podcast. We would just go have coffee and talk about these things, and so there's a point of it. You just have to kind of do it for yourself, and that seems very egotistical to just want to talk about yourself and about your experiences. But you do. You have to a degree. You kind of have to do it for your happiness and your joy. And so I think that's hopefully it's read for all of you guys out there that's watching this. Hopefully you've definitely felt that we're having fun doing this. It's good to have us just talk about the stuff on our mind.
Yeah.
So before we kind of go down any memory lane, which is just going to be more just us talking about some of our favorite episodes and stuff, I did want to talk about one piece of news that happened this week.
Yeah,
I would like to break into some new news.
I think that's a good thing, because I want to put a little bit in between there, because let's put the memory lane on the back, because we were rambling on about how great and what you can learn when you do something for long. Let's put some buffers in between. So what is your first news article?
Well, yeah, let's let me actually should have had this already ready to go. Here we are, episode 50, ready to go.
The stress, the struggle, game is on. Dim 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 dim. That is now my new intro music for.
The waiting for me. Okay, cool. Let's do this. Okay, cool. So,
you got to talk in front of the mic. You're ultra quiet.
Okay, I won't talk at all then because I got it. Sorry. All right, sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so I wanted to just talk a little bit about this, about a big rebranding that happened this week that everyone should probably know about, and that rebranding would be X, right? Twitter becoming X.
What?
And that rebranding
How did I
happening.
not know that?
Well, you haven't even heard of this. Wow, this is fresh for Fitze. So this happened a few days ago, maybe 4 or 5 days ago now, where Elon tweeted. At first, he tweeted an X, which is really funny. First off, as a typographic nerd, I do want to pause and say, so that X, their new logo, is actually a Unicode symbol, which is really cool. So you could actually type that X out if you could find the Unicode shortcut on your keyboard. So that Unicode was actually in the 2001, I guess, bunch that they had released. So that's actually kind of interesting. But he rebranded Twitter to X fully. It's so if you go to twitter.com or if you go to x.com, it'll go to twitter.com, and it's now X.
Oh, that's cool. On that note, because you're a graphic designer and you're all about the design life, and I think like we owe it to the people who are listening to the podcast. I think like if you would describe this logo, do you think the logo is well designed, and how would you describe it right now? Because like I kind of see a Y in there too, if it's on the first background.
Yeah, and right now I'm just pulling up their website. I'm actually interested to see what pops up. Okay, yep, so it's the little X that pops up. So you exactly, here's the X. It's funny because they put it right on the same Twitter, the old Twitter background, but now it's an X. It's kind of funny. It's still that bright blue. But yeah, I mean, it kind of on a graphic level, I think it's a good mark on a graphic level. Sure. Does it really inspire anything? Is it really groundbreaking? No. I think the bird was really cool because it was against the whole rounded rectangle thing, rounded square thing you saw happen for a while with Facebook, Instagram, pretty much everyone, LinkedIn. And so they kind of went away from that, and I did love that they did that, and they had this just kind of bird that was beautifully designed. But now it's like, it's one of those things that's like a graphically simple thing, but it's almost too graphically simple, if that makes sense. Or it's not really...
I feel kind of like they lost the human touch on it, because humans like animals, and usually it's like, you gotta have a logo, and you gotta have like a mascot, and the Twitter thing had both, so that's why I'm like, oh, it's kind of cute. It's a bird tweeting, I'm like, oh, this is like, this is cute, Now we have that whole static X that is like very industrial, kind of futuristic, stylish kind of vibe for me. And I'm like, how does it relate to the tweeting? It seems like the designer came in and it's just like new branding, new anything, and now it's not working with tweeting,
Yeah, and I have a theory here. So I think this is all Elon. I don't even think he had an outside branding firm help him, which I think is a problem. And my thinking behind this is, a lot of people don't know this, but when PayPal, which was owned by Elon Musk, started by Elon Musk, back in the late 90s, he actually wanted to call that PayX, or X as well. So he wanted to use X, and then what other company has X in it? Well, SpaceX does. So... And his thinking, I guess, behind this being an X is he wants this to be an app of everything. He wants it to be a banking app, social media app. He wants it to do everything. And so I think that's why he did X, because for him, X is everything.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Like, Elon, that fits his style. And I think also, like, the future of apps is basically becoming everything. Because, like, we both, or all of us kind of experience like when you're like, oh, a friend sends me pay me request on like Facebook, and you're like, Facebook, what has my bank to do with Facebook? And it's like they're trying to become the marketplace. They're trying to become like, the direct communication with call, voice, video, everything, and they just get more and more implemented in our lives. Now, it's like the thing in China. It's also very big. Like there's like I think it's WeChat or whatever, and they basically have everything in an app. And each year or each couple of years, there's a new app coming out that integrates everything better into one app. What is kind of interesting.
Right. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Super Walmarts came on the scene, which I'm actually, I think that happened when I was just a young kid. But you went from all these small stores to like, well, we're Super Walmart. We're going to do it all. Like, why would you ever go to the mom and pop store when you come to Super Walmart and get it all? And I feel like that's that's kind of what he's trying to do, right? This may even, you could even say, is trying to push out all the small apps and trying to push out all these small services to be like, no, why would you go do these tiny things? Come back onto the X and have it all in the same space. Now, obviously, I have some thoughts about that, where, obviously on a development point of view, sure, can you have everything in the same place? Sure, but does it create some possible security problems? Maybe. When you have a bank account attached to your social security account, I could see some problems there. But also, you're kind of trying to do. I think there is that possibility they're trying to do too much here. That he's trying to make Twitter to be this huge conglomerate of all these different things, when really Twitter did really good at doing a few things really, 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 really well. And but yeah, and the biggest thing here too that we haven't even talked about is that he's lost so much ad revenue. Something like 60 to 70% of all Twitter's old ad revenue is now left, which was their purse. So do you think this will help that? Do you think this will hurt that this rebrand?
I think it's a good thing. So first off, like my first initial thought about like you saying like doing everything is kind of bad. I agree and disagree, because like on the big level you capture way more customers. It's like the super Walmart. You go there and it's really easy and convenient. But if you want specialty things and you want special treatment, the independent, unique shop for whatever service it is will be better. Like they have a better security, they have a better arrangement and options for you. So it's like they cannot compete on it, but the scale of things, it's way easier now. But with that, like you said, there's a lot of risk that comes with it, because like the scam artists, they're like, oh yeah, because they're doing everything, they're not good at everything. So it's like they can weasel their way in there and just like making some money, and it will be buffed out over time, but it will be in general less secure. That is like my first thought about it, but I think it's the best move nowadays, because like everything is getting more and more integrated, and they maybe fail, and then the next app will implement everything they did and what Facebook did into one new app, and so on.
Well, that's kind of already happened, right? I mean, we had another app kind of start up in the last 2 weeks that we haven't really talked that much about, and that's Threads, right? And what is Threads? Well, that's Twitter. And what's kind of come out too is, who are the people that started Threads? Well, some of them are ex-Twitter employees, which there has been some weird lawyer rocky swaps there of like, well, speaking of NDAs, and I think it's interesting, right? Now I think that's another conversation to have of like, do you think Threads can come in and take Twitter's old spot now that Twitter's all over the place? Does that leave an opening for Threads to be like, cool, we're going to do what they used to do really well, but now we're going to do that well?
Yeah, so on that note, Fred, I don't know if you signed up with it, but I'm like usually, okay, if I hear about something, I try to be an early bird. And, it's easier said than it's done. I hear it 2 or 3 times, then I signed up with it. And I could have been maybe a day earlier, and that would have been my fastest. And Fred's was kind of interesting, because they give you like basically your sign-up number. So what number are you? Are you like sign-up number 40 million, And I was 40 million, and then I was like checking out who were the early adapters, and it was like really interesting. Like Gary Vee was like, I think at 700 or 800, so I was like, okay, that guy signed up very early. He knew about it before most people knew about it. Now I'm like, okay, let's go into like, in Instagram they have those channels, and I'm like, let's check out if he was promoting it early on, and if I could have shaved a couple days and to gain early access or more momentum. And he announced it. I'm like, God damn, if I would have listened to that guy and would have followed, I would have been faster, But do I see Threads being a long-term thing? Most likely, I'm already like bored with it, and I like Twitter from the message and the freedom of speech aspect way better. Even though with freedom of speech, there's a lot of like talk that you don't like.
Yeah, well, visuals for that matter too.
Yeah.
I personally, I guess my first thought of Thread, I did it for my art Instagram, and what was odd about it, so one of the first things that was really odd about it was that there was people's thread that wasn't even in my network that I saw, and people that were interacting with mine that were never anywhere in my network. So in a way, that's good, right? Because you're getting new eyeballs in theory. But what was weird is I felt like there was this weird disconnect with people posting it, where they were like, "This isn't even my audience usually. This is like and it's very weird because it's trying to also still have images in it, which is weird because it's not. It's like I would just use Instagram for that because it's just doing a better job. Because even the images and what they look like in a thread, it just looks like a stupid embedded image.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then talking about their branding, not that great either. I mean, it's a very like even their logo looks kind of like just like a link, and I don't know. It just doesn't do much for me. I will say this: at least X gets me interested. I at least lean in, and I'm like, all right, X, what are we doing here? This is all futuristic. Where Thread was just thread repeated over itself in a curly thing, and like that's it. Let's pay that guy $100,000. He did a great job branding this.
Yeah, with that being said, though, I think like the X logo is a little bit harsher to digest, because it's like not smooth, does not make a lot of sense. Threads, on the other hand, the app was so smooth implemented, and that was like a master marketing move on the suck, He's like, oh yeah, everybody who's using Instagram, Facebook, it's easy to sign up. Just click this button and you're a user, And obviously when people see it, they're like, oh yeah, why not? It goes fast. You just click it, done, And that's how he generated, like, I think like it was 100 million users in a couple days. I'm like, fastest growing app, and I'm like, if Twitter would do the same thing with like a Instagram competitor, what I would like to see, because like would be cool getting some like video content on Twitter that is like searchable with algorithms and all the good stuff, would be nice, but they would not pull the same numbers, they would maybe pull like a couple million, maybe.
Yeah. Well, you're right. They don't have the user base to kind of pull from that Facebook does. Facebook just has this massive ecosystem at this point. And I think that's what they're all trying to do, right? I think the thinking is if we make our ecosystem so big, then it'll never fail. We can never have Facebook fail if it's tied into all the banks and all these different things. How could we ever have it fail? So I think that's the thinking there. And I think you brought up a good point, though, that the X is like this kind of harsher, more straight edge, right angles on it. It's kind of more sharp. It's very interesting, right? Because the Twitter logo was kind of more soft. There was all these curves, all these kind of circular shapes. And it's funny, on a branding level, one of the first things you learn in any kind of branding academy or school is that like understanding kind of softness versus hardness, right? And like even your logo. So my logo is all these jagged shapes and stuff. So it gives you this kind of jagged, cutting edge, serious. A lot of male logos obviously have more rigid, where a lot of female logos have more curves. But like, I think, but it's the same thing here where like Twitter has now done this kind of push now where they're like, we don't want to be the soft, cuddly app now. We want to be the cool kids with the sunglasses in the alley. And so we'll see if that works.
Yeah, I just hope they survive. Like that's what, because like from a freedom of speech standpoint, it's an app that needs to be there. Is everything on there nice? No, it's not. Does it have a lot of flaws? Yes, it does. But I think it's a good thing. But with smoothness, I had in mind, more you have the bird who's tweeting, Now you got the X that is like doing nothing. You see, there's no smooth transition from Xing to, so it's like now it's a hard transition. By Facebook, it was like, you have threads and you're threading some comments, and that kind of made sense, I'm like,
sharing,
that's. Yeah, so it's like it's smoother, and I'm like, it's well more. There's some thought behind it, that makes it easier to digest. But it's like it's too smooth. Yeah. But the X really rubs it in. We're different. We're doing now some shenanigans, and it's just like, huh,
Yeah. I could see, I'm hoping that like it really works out in the way that they take this opportunity to do new things, right? If we're going to really do something new, let's do something new, right? How do we make a new social media thing? So it would be disappointing if this is just like a skin only rebrand. You see X's and it's just Twitter, but now it's with X's, and like, how do we talk? It's not tweeting, it's Xing. It just the verbiage is weird. There's a lot. I hope they're having workshops. Like I hope they have one brand studio now that's going to come in and like rub their heads and be like, Okay, so we have an X. All right, start from there.
Yeah, so for all the designers, this is actually a gold mine. If you can lay out the problems and come with an easier solution, it's really easy to roll in like, hey, this kind of sucks. I would do it this way, and I can do it better. Let me do it for free, and if you like it, pay me, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Well,
that
no,
sometimes works. You know?
Oh yeah, yeah. Hypothetical projects are definitely cool when you can find something that people are interested in. And so for any of you out there watching this, X is an interesting project, right? This is a cool thing for you to be like, if I was on that team, if Elon Musk hired me tomorrow, this is what I would do. You know, and I don't know what I would do. I think it's a very interesting. I would want them to blow it out of the water. So I think any idea that I would have would be like, let's see how we can take the like linear things typed up and us scrolling. How do we change that? Can this be more like Wikipedia, where I click a link in someone's tweet and it opens up another tweet and opens up another tweet? Or can we have, I don't know, like, is it some? That's what I would be trying to push for. It'll be sad if this is just an X and it's the exact same interface.
Yeah. Yeah, with that being said, like I think that was a banger content so far. I want to hear from you guys, like what would you guys think about the logo in general, the branding, and if this is a little bit too much in depth, but I really like that type of stuff because there's so much planning, strategy, psychology, obviously sweat and tears behind it, unless somebody just pressed the X button and is like, that's all right. Happens too sometimes, you know? There's like, what is those famous brands for a perfume or whatever that is just a font. I forgot it. Dijon? No. Anyways, basically there's a famous brand out there where they use a regular font and that is like their expensive logo. Just their name written out in a basic font. So some people...
Well, yeah, you know, and I think it's funny because this makes me think back to our, you know, I'll kind of use this as a segue to kind of back to our flashbacks of our show, but like this brings me back to our first episode when we talked about Donald Trump designing this plane and nobody telling him stop. I feel like this may be Elon Musk's plane that he's designing, right? And everyone's like, well, don't make Elon mad. If he says X, it's an X, you know.
And that's right.
It could really blow up. I mean, it could. It really could. It sounds like you didn't have a designer in the room making these decisions. It sounds like Elon made these decisions. Like when Elon bought Twitter, this was always the plan, I think. I don't think this is anything new. I think he was like always going to rebrand it as X.
Yeah, I think Elon though has like a really good taste. So it's like he's funny. He has internet culture. You know, most CEOs have no culture at all, and they're just like, you know, illuminating to everybody, and they're just like, okay, I cannot identify with this person because it's too different. At least you can laugh about his jokes or get offended. You know, it's the either or. Where other people, you just don't get it at all. You know, and it's just like weird. You know,
I'll agree. I agree with that, but I also think that Elon is he's an intelligent person, but he's not very intelligent for what people want. I think he's good at like making things better, but not necessarily communicating with people. So but yeah, so to kind of move on from there, I just kind of wanted to talk about a few things that's been interesting in this show. I guess a couple flashbacks. This is another example of, you know, I had planned to kind of do some clips and scenes for us to look at, but, you know, I kind of threw that out yesterday. I was kind of starting that process, and I was like, you know, I don't think we need to get into that. But I did want to kind of highlight like some of our favorite episodes. So I guess want to first ask you, you know, out of our 50 episodes, including this one, I know this one's your favorite, so I guess not including this one, what's your favorite episode ever?
So I like the German one because we had some really, really good analogies. And if you know those other analogies, drop them down below. We kind of, you know, want to hear about them. But there were some really good ones in there. What was the other one? I always, when I was traveling in a hotel, we had a really cool one about some AI program. It didn't really go as viral or anything, but I kind of enjoyed it because it was an interesting topic, you know, those two.
Yeah. So I think that was like episode 5 and 6. So that goes way back. So when Fitze was kind of traveling around, but yeah. I mean, the one that I like that one too. I like the, you know, so for everyone out there, it's the where we all began in treating ideas like insert blank, and yeah, that was kind of one of my favorite ones too, because we really dived into like where did this all begin, right? Like where did Fitze think he was creative, and where did I think I began creativity? And I think it's an interesting thing when I ask other creative people, you know, when do you think you became creative? When did you start liking this? It's funny because a lot of people really don't think about that. They don't really think about the beginning. Where did it all begin? And yeah, but honestly, getting to the second part of that, treating ideas in a way that, not every idea is the end all be all. I thought, yeah, that was a great conversation. And those were the first episodes where we started talking about AI. I think it started to pop into our sphere a little bit more and more back then.
Yeah. I mean, like, life changed a lot. Like, we are making progress on the AI spectrum. It's ridiculous. It's implemented in every aspect for me now. I'm like, I had like timestamps, for example. Let's say you cut timestamps and you move everything by 5 minutes, ChatGPT-3, make it -5, and it will write it down for you in the right format. I just did that the other day because I could do it manually with my head, like, okay, 14 minutes -5 because the whole video is like 5 minutes shorter now, and it's like obviously always an odd number, so you always have to do some math, and it's really annoying. Nope, copy and paste ChatGPT-3 and tell him what you want to do, and he gives you the list, and it's great.
Yeah, and obviously I think, I use it too. I mean, I'd be lying to you. I use it a lot for coding now, and I've been thinking about even starting to use Git has like an AI that helps you write code now too. So I've been kind of looking at that. They'll like write the code for me as I write it, like autocomplete, but for code. But anyway, so it's interesting because throughout this podcast too, we've seen how like we've gotten initiated. So it's funny to think back to our episode on Midjourney, which I think was like in our early teens of episodes. I think that's one of our most popular episodes ever. Obviously for SEO reasons, probably because it just popped off. But I think what was really fun about that is I think we had this kind of play in there. We actually kind of showed people like what's the most beautiful woman when we refresh this. We keep having it keep going and keep refining this woman. What does that woman end up looking like? And
it was kind of funny though. You would assume like a beautiful woman is either blonde, and youth and whatever. No, it was brunette. I'm like, huh.
Yeah, it was
that's
interesting.
Like the common phrase that an AI thinks brunette.
Yeah, because we're really good on the beginning of it of not putting brown hair, not putting like blue eyes, not putting any of these things, and just letting it go. And it was cool. It was cool how it kind of it just kind of kept changing and changing, and then even fun things where it was like Brad Pitt making pizza or something like that. I forgot what it exactly was, but I think that was one of my favorite episodes because there was like this cool state of play. I think a lot of people were like not really familiar with it yet, including us, and I think it was just cool to like even see people's reaction that had never played with Midjourney and saw our episode and were like, whoa, this looks like a really fun thing to play with. So that was definitely one of my favorite episodes, so I think, it was that one. I think the fourth episode, we were talking about space badges. I think that was a really fun episode.
That was a good one too. That was a really good one because that ranked on YouTube well, and it was really themed. So also comment down below, would you like more the themed episodes or you kind of like the freestyle a little bit more? But
yeah, and if you have a favorite episode, feel free to shout that one out too, because we'll look at that. If we see that you guys are all liking this one type of episode, we can start to gear towards that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I guess to move forward too, I think some of my favorite episodes too were kind of when we would get into some rocky stuff in our own lives. I feel like I've talked to some people outside the podcast, and they actually felt like that was some of the most useful stuff. Is this talking about like us getting over our things, right? You having clients that weren't respecting your opinion, me having clients that were like leaving me or going to someone else, and those kind of moments, and like how do we get through it, right? I think those are kind of some of the interesting ones I like to look at. I think it'll be fun, like in years from now, for us to look at and be like, oh my God, I remember when you were dealing with all these things and we had no idea what was going to happen.
And I mean, like, there's always problems, and that was always the main reason why we do the podcast. I'm like, I want to talk to Sean because he figured stuff out that I haven't figured out. I do stuff that Sean doesn't really do, but kind of wants to do, should do, with like, oh, I should post a video so my art gets, checked out and stuff like that. And that is like one of the things where it's like, this was about learning. This was about like, doing the next thing where we're struggling with, and what would be the solution that somebody else would do, because like when you're stuck in your own head, you don't see the solutions, and they're sometimes really easy, and you just don't see it. It's like, it could be a thumbnail. Every thumbnail you do is black, and you can't see what the problem is just because it's always black, for example. It's like, oh, I need colorful thumbnails. Now it makes all sense, But you wouldn't think about it if not somebody else steps in, because we all live in our world and we just see what we want to see, and it's like we're stuck in a world, kind of, if that makes sense. So you need external input.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's been good. I think even just us being able to see the data on these episodes. When do people drop off? When do people get on? It's good. It's so we've just been having this kind of experimental outlook on this podcast since the very beginning. And so with that being said, I guess what are some things I guess you want to see in the next 50 episodes? I guess what are some things that people should expect out there for us? What do we want to start doing a little bit more or better?
Yeah. So I feel like I kind of right now, because like I was like, okay, life is tough right now, and we had our things going on, and we got like a little bit lazy, slacking, moving things around because like, oh, we can because of X, Y, and Z, and obviously that's not really beneficial because like it impacts everything. So I kind of want to go a little bit more back to the more rigid and just lesser effort but more rigid, and then maybe expand again and trying to give a good push. But I'm obviously there's flexibility and there's a lot of things that I just learned, so I'm like I kind of want to implement all the new knowledge, kind of, if that makes sense.
Okay, what's one of those things? Give me a tidbit of some of that new knowledge. What's one of the things you'd want to implement?
NDAs.
For all you guys out there, he had his first NDA he signed, so now he wants to implement that everywhere, just so you guys all understand where that came from.
No, I'm just kidding. I would not do that. Obviously, it's just like we're not been very active. Like we were talking about like the one thing, volume, for example. I was like, okay, I wanted to post on Instagram a lot. It's like basically the thing that I wanted to do beforehand, and it has nothing to do with the NDA. But it's basically one of those things, where it's like volume matters a lot, and it's like I was not thinking how much it matters, and it's like it's really easy to slack off, and it's like, okay, let's schedule everything. And there's a big difference in between scheduling and actually posting yourself. I kind of did the experiment on my other channel, so that's why I learned a lot. And I'm like, okay, I'll create before consume. I schedule 3 videos every day, and it uploads every day, and I did the schedule. It was horrendous. So I'm like, I don't even bother. But if I go to the app,
what do you mean
manually?
So what do you mean by horrendous? I guess I just want to pause you. What do you mean by it was horrendous? Was it horrendous like work-wise, or what do you mean?
Impact-wise. Like it would not get picked up and stuff like that. If you post it organically, it apparently hits everything way better,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like kind of like more the volume game, and then also the quality game that I want to implement. But I need to find my I have to, there's a pendle that we all have, and we have to pendle in our swing, and when we know how we swing, then we know when we can work hard and how we hit it hard, and what is, when I say, oh, I will edit everything right now, and now it comes out I have things going on, I'm like, oh, I guess I cannot because I'm unaware of my schedule,
Okay.
So it's like about pendling in and then hitting it hard again.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I could see that. I think I think any podcast duo has to split things up. I've definitely been. I think the last month or two, I've been posting a lot more of our clips and stuff, which I think has helped. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from that. A lot of people have been subscribing. But you're the one that started all that months and months ago. So yeah, I think that's something I'd like to see you start to take up again, because I think it had such good success, right? I think that was where we saw some of the best success, was because, obviously this is a long form thing. So for any of you that are still watching, like and subscribe. But this long form content, a lot of people don't sit through a lot of it. I like it because I like to put it on in the back. I'm a guy that likes to paint and have a podcast in the back, or design a website. But you're right. It's you've been right since the beginning of it's the short form. The short form is what draws the people in, and then when they like us, they'll get to the long form content. So I think I would like to do more of that as well.
Is for sale apparently, isn't it?
Sorry, what?
Your art. That is like one of the things. Like if you get the traffic from the reels, and podcasting is kind of a source of traffic. It's like making a blog post on the internet. It's like a website. It's like generating traffic. What is a good thing? And obviously you have to provide value. So that's why I'm like, we can promote our products and things, but obviously this is more about the community of being an artist, making the freelance lifestyle happening and being a creative in general, So it's not about we want to sell you everything, we want to, follow us. It's more about we want to hear from you, we want to build this community because AI is kind of taking community away from us,
Yeah. Well, I think so. I think that's what this all kind of comes out for me. I know that my thoughts in this podcast have never really been, at least in the short term, for me to really get new clients or get all these things or get monetized or sell cups. You guys should buy a cup; they're still for sale. But I think for me, it's all about, it's just about connecting with people and getting my voice out there and me having an identity. I keep talking about that to a lot of creatives of like, the biggest part of your success is your identity. And the problem that a lot of creatives make is they work so hard on their identity, they'll put out the podcast, the posts, they'll put on the LinkedIn messages, they'll do all of these things, they'll go to the networking meetups, they'll do all of that stuff. Then they get the job, then they stop everything. Because, I got the job, I got the goal. Why would I market myself? I already got the thing. Then a year passes. Then the job ends, and now you have nothing. You haven't built anything. Nobody knows about you or any of the things you do. So it's like the identity has to always happen, and it can't stop once you get work. That's the thing too. I keep running into with myself is like, once I get busy with all these projects, you can't stop marketing yourself. You can't just like, okay, cool, wanted. Now we'll just disappear off the internet for 2 years. Like, no, you got to keep going.
I mean, you can. The problem is if you let something go down, it is really hard to pick it up again. And I saw it on the internet with people who are doing daily vlogs and daily posting, and like after you burn out, it's more likely that you never pick it up really consistently. So that's like one of the things where it's like, if it breaks, it breaks, and most people are too weak to force it because you need an extreme mental strength and, like a good work ethic to just like, I just pick it up anyways, It's like when Rachel had to do Duolingo Street, 400 days or something like that, doing Duolingo, learning German, After it broke, and it's just like, it's nothing wrong with it, but it's really hard to pick it up again, unless there's like external motivating factors, like opportunities, situations that maybe can spark the fire, but, don't break habits.
Yeah, well, and create sustainable habits, right? So
Exactly.
For people like me, we get told by people like you, post more. But I would say if posting more breaks it, and if posting more is going to push things too hard and it's going to make it terrible in a few months, or posting more makes you feel angry when you don't get the likes because you work so dang hard on posting, then I would say no, calm it down. Do one a week, do one a month, but keep it going is going to be the biggest thing. Don't ever like let the full stop happen. Like, and if that means slowing down, like even this podcast, we've seen that where we've had to be like, hey, let's just give it some space because it's either that or we try to ram it down the turnpike and we get angry and we quit this podcast. And so it's that sustainability too of like know when to let off the accelerator too. Be like, it's okay. I don't have enough time to do this, but I'm not quitting. I'm going to just do a little bit less.
Yeah, and it's a marathon, and there's no judgment, and it's all about, like, building community, and if it's just a community between us two, but if there's more people, we appreciate you.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we'll go ahead. We'll keep this one a short one. I mean, I would say, all of these last episodes have been really, really cool. I think, we both want to see this get better and better. We have some guests that are going to be coming down the road. Also, just want to say in a month, we're going to be doing some more in-person podcast, which is going to be great. There's going to be more live streams, things like that happening. So I'm excited for it, man. I think for everyone out there, please keep liking, keep subscribing, please keep commenting. I love that we're starting to get some good comments, getting some really good emails, giving us some feedback, and so for everyone out there, just keep shooting us stuff. We love the love. If you ever want to donate to this podcast, you can find that through our Anchor page. We can link to that on our YouTube. So if you ever want to give us a few bucks, feel free. But we do it for the love. But yeah, other than that, man, I'm looking forward to the next episodes. I'm looking forward to the next 50.
Yeah. So have a good one, guys.
See you guys. See you on episode